Learner-centered learning is the big thing in education these days, with the learner doing all the work instead of the teacher. It's particularly popular in massive open online courses, or MOOCs, where there are too many students for a teacher to teach anyway. Who knew? At the Learner-Centered Learning Centre, we're excited to be extending the LCL concept into the fantastic new practice of interviewer-centered interviewing. And who better to discuss this with today than one of the greatest TV interviewers of all time, my dad. Welcome, Dad.
Thank you.
Dad, you too had a career in media. Rookie reporter on a community newspaper in the north of England in the 1960s, and you rose to become bureau chief for the NBS network in London and Washington. Many viewers remember you as the host of Tough Talk in the 80s and 90s. So I'm following in your media footsteps, Dad, and I have much to learn from you. What can you tell me?
What do you want to know?
Oh, it was your career, Dad, not mine. You tell me.
45 years is a long time. Where do you want me to start?
Dad, I explained to you that under the new interviewer-centered interviewing rules, I'm supposed to ask you the questions and you come up with the answers.
But you see, I can't do that if you don't tell me the context of your questions. You should have done that before we came on air, but you didn't. What areas do you and your viewers need me to focus on?
But I'm the learner, Dad, and I ask the questions. You're supposed to answer them. Don't you think that's a good idea? You see, the principles of LCL define the learner as the expert and the interviewer as the expert on television. Those are great ideas too, aren't they?
They really are, son.
And the expert today is someone who has the questions rather than the answers. That's a good definition, isn't it?
It certainly is. Isn't that what you want me to say?
You're asking me a question again, Dad.
And as the interviewee, I'm just someone who sits here and nods and says yes.
That's right. And I got into being an expert because I ask good questions. An expert is as good as the questions he asks. Didn't you always find that?
Well, you see, that definition you just gave me is not completely accurate. An expert is also as good as the questions he's asked. And if you don't ask me good questions, you won't get good answers from me, and you'll have to answer some questions from me before we can get anywhere.
Fair. You always got me confused.
Just allow me one question, son. Where do your questions come from?
I get a question book from the show's sponsor,
MOOC Publishing. I suppose I'm only on the show because MOOC Publishing thinks I might give them a few extra ideas for their question book.
I hate to say it, Dad, but that's right.
I just don't understand what you're doing on this show, son. You're a bright kid, always asking us neat questions, avid to learn, and now you just seem like some kind of stooge, feeding stock questions to your interviewees without listening to their answers.
But that's the interviewer-centered interviewing way, Dad.
In my day, we uncovered the truth by responding to the questions others were asking, and asking tough questions of our own as we'd been trained to do. And we debated the answers on screen in tough discussion.
As in your show, Tough Talk?
Yes, that was the role of the media and the student in those days. Challenging the order of things, not playing puppet for some hidden propaganda campaign as you seem to be doing.
You're suggesting I'm a puppet for some hidden propaganda campaign?
Is that it, son? There's a corporate motive behind this show? Like, for example, lucrative sales of worldwide educational materials for these
We're supposed to be discussing your career, Dad, not mine.
For these massive open online courses you're so keen on?
I don't want us to discuss MOOCs because I don't think you understand them.
I understand that all these modern learner-centered, interviewer-centered ideas have turned the world inside out. That they're destroying the skills of intelligent discussion and research just as totalitarian regimes have throughout history. And MOOCs, what kind of doofus would come up with a term like that? Giving a name...
Dad, I'll lose my job!
Giving a name to a process that's bringing education to its knees.
Your blood pressure, Dad, this isn't good for you.
Nor for you, I expect. Your mother and I brought you up to think critically, as good teachers should, and you should be fulfilling that role on this show.
Dad, we can't use the T word anymore. It represents the top-down autocratic approach to knowledge acquisition.
and your learner-centred approach doesn't. Your learners are being fed with top-down autocratic course materials by the MOOC publishers.
I understand that MOOC publishing has given me a car and a good salary, and that you'll never have to worry about your grandchildren growing up in semi-poverty like we did.
I understand that my grandchildren will grow up bereft of a love of honest debate and the joy of learning new perspectives from those more experienced.
Dad, the world's moved on. From the LCL show, goodbye for now.